Guys, so I'm coming at you today with a tutorial of how I do my machine sewn wigs. Here is the closure unit, and I am just going to, I've already T-pinned it down, and I'm going to use this silver Sharpie to outline the closure. Now you T-pin it down as flat as possible to your mesh dome cap, and then you just trace it with the silver Sharpie to make sure that when you're on the machine you don't go past that line. That outline is specifically for the closure only, and when you're sewing the wefts you don't want to sew on that line or inside that line, because then your closure will not fit. We want to use a silver Sharpie or a gold Sharpie just to make sure you can see the lines when you're sewing on the machine. And here I have my lines already done, and that is where the wefts will go, and so it'll be easier for me to see on the machine. Now I'm going to use, I'm going to start my wefts on the back of the cap, the last, and I'm going to just double stitch here like 2 or 3 times, and then I'm going to go forward. And then I'm going to cut the wefts. Yes, I cut the wefts, and it's okay because you can back stitch on that cut weft and just seal it, and it will be right as rain. You don't have to worry about the shedding or anything like that because you can seal it by back stitching it. I sometimes back stitch like 3 or 4 times just because I'm crazy, but you don't really have to do it that many times. You can do it like 2 or 3 times, so that's fine. Here's a comb that I use. I got those combs off Amazon, and I'll put them in a link below. I'll link it below. But I got those combs off Amazon, and those are the combs that I use on my machine sewn wigs. Now what you're seeing is that I put the comb at the very tip or back of my cap, and I move the hair out of the way as much as possible, and I use a straight stitch to just sew that right onto the cap, to the inside of the cap. And I usually do it after I do my first weft, so that the comb is not in the way when I'm doing the wefts. So there you see I did the straight stitch, and it's on, easy peasy lemon squeezy, nice and secure. Now I can move forward with sewing on the rest of my wefts, which is what I'm about to do. I'm about to do the second wefts. Now here I was just showing you that my wefts are double stitched together so that I can sew more hair on. That is the back stitching. I back stitch 2 or 3 times. You want to double the wefts if you want to add more hair onto your cap, and also so that it doesn't take a long time for you to do your wig. Again, I cut the wefts and I back stitch over 2 or 3 times, hit the reverse button, and you back stitch and you cut the strings. You always want to make sure that you cut the strings after you're finished one line on your cap. Then I go to the next line and I do it all over again. You just want to stay consistent with your lines, just consistent with your stitching. I use a zigzag stitching, but you can use any stitching that you feel comfortable with. I just like the zigzag stitching, and it's just a nice, neat stitching for me. When you're sewing your wefts onto your cap, you do not want to tug or pull the cap too much, because if you do, sometimes it may get bigger or it may get smaller depending on how you stretched it. So you really don't want to stretch the cap. You just want to like pull, or you just want to like hold things out of the way. You know what I mean? You want to hold the cap so that the lines are straight. You want to hold the wefts so that they stay on the line or near the line. It doesn't have to be perfect, long as they are as close as possible. And so here I'm just showing you the stitching. Neat stitching, hair secure. That wig won't go anywhere, honey. It is there, okay? The hair I'm using is a loose curl that my client wanted. And I'm going to the next weft, the next line and the next weft. After each line, I do cut the strings. It's just easier. I don't know if some people don't, but I do. So you just line your weft up with the line, and then you back stitch, and then move forward. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I like to keep my hands. Some people use one hand to stitch. I'm not that person. I have to have both hands on my units at all times, just so that I make sure that I'm watching and making sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So here I'm just lining the wefts up with the lines on the wigs, just making sure that everything is good. And then I cut again, cut the strings. Now, it's really just all about making sure that you are staying on your guides. That's what those lines that you draw on the cap are. They're your guides to make sure that you make a seamless unit, and it's just easier to do. So you see that buckle there. I'm just gonna lay the weft, on there. I'm going to do some back stitching, and I'm going to go forward. You may not be able to see exactly what I'm doing because my hands and the hair is now getting in the way, but rest assured I'm doing the exact same thing I did when I first started. I'm just back stitching, and then I'm going forward. You want to back stitch the first few inches and then go forward. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going through the motions, making sure that the wig, that the cap is staying straight. And so like halfway before I get to the end, I cut the weft so that I can just have a seamless finish, and I don't have to wait till the last minute to cut the wefts. So I just cut it right before I get to the end, and then I back stitch, and it fits nice and snug, easy peasy. So here we are, guys. We are done with our unit, except for the fact that we need to sew on our closure. So what I do is I hand sew my closure first, so it's back on the mannequin and back on the T-pins. You see that? It's not sewn on yet. What we're going to do is we're going to take some needle and thread, the old-fashioned needle and thread way, and we're going to hand sew the closure on. Now, this is the way that I do it. You can machine sew it if you want to. I still machine sew my closure, but I just hand sew it first to make sure that everything fits where I want it to fit. That's just my method. You don't have to use it, but that's just what I do. So I'm going to start hand stitching my unit. My closure. And I don't really use any specific method. Just if you know how to sew, hand sew a unit, it's just the same thing. I just go through the cap and through the edge of the closure. making sure that it's secure all the way around. Sometimes I hit a snag. Again, you don't have to machine sew you don't have to hand sew the closure. If you want to go ahead and machine sew it, that's perfectly fine. It's just I choose to hand sew my closures first and then machine sew it because it's just more seamless for me. Never mind my kids leaving the room, and that space right there above the closure, don't worry about that. We're going to clean that up after we're done hand sewing the closure on. So that is me struggling because I was trying not to use my other hand. I was trying to use one hand just so I could show you guys what exactly I'm doing, but I failed miserably. So we're just gonna move on. This is me showing you my sewing technique. I loop it through the string and then I pull through. Go through the closure, loop it through the string, and then I pull through. That's my technique. You can use your own technique, however you feel comfortable. It's no right or wrong way to actually get it done. So we are nearing the edge of our closure. We're almost done. We're almost done. Okay, sorry. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch one more time the way that we have always stitched, but when we go through the thread, we're going to loop it around the needle a few times, like 3 or 4 times. We're just going to loop it, see that loop, 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 and then we're going to pull, and that creates a knot. So we're good to go. And then we're just going to cut that string, boom, and we're ready to machine sew our closure down. T-pins out. Remove your T-pins. You want to tighten up the hair on the closure just so that it's out of the way while you're trying to machine sew it down. It does have strings on there. We're going to take care of that a little later. This is a piece of the weft left over from the hair, and I like to just save a small piece of the hair because I want to be able to sew it as close to the closure as possible. It gives that seamless finish, and it also ties up any loose ends, in my opinion, but it just gives that seamless finish. So it's gonna cover that little spot there on the cap, so you don't have to worry about that. But it just gives a seamless finish to me, and that's just my method. Again, you can not put anything there, or you could sew, you know, the wefts right below the closure. I just choose to sew it right there at the tip of it. So here we are going to sew that weft on with the closure and secure them both, killing two birds with one stone, guys. We're gonna work smarter here and not harder. So you want to start, and you want to make sure that you go slow and take your time so that you can pay attention to everything that's going on. And of course, what are we going to do? Back stitching. You're just gonna follow the line of the closure. You're not gonna add any lines. You're not gonna deviate from the line. You're gonna stay right there where the closure is, so that you can make sure that you secure the closure and the weft at the same time. Here we are nearing the end of the closure, back stitching again. Just to secure it and make sure that everything is on and going nowhere. Here we are, guys. Here's our finished product. See how we have the seamless finish there? You really can't see anything there. There's nothing you can see. No holes, no spots. And the closure and the weft look like they are one and the same, and it's so awesome. This is our finished unit. We're done. We did it. We did it. And this is the inside of the unit. You want to make sure that your stitching was seamless. You want to make sure that there are no holes or any spots, because sometimes you can stitch too fast and then the machine will skip. So you want to make sure that there are no holes or no spots that you might need to go back over. And then you see all those strings. We're going to take care of the strings in a little bit. Well, what you could do is just cut the strings. If you see them, just cut them all off. What we do here is we're going to cut that piece of cap off. We want to cut that off right before the stitching. You don't want to cut into the stitching, because then you're going to cut your closure off. So you want to cut it right before the stitching, and you want to make sure that you have your hand, if you can, if that works for you, have your hand in there. That's what I like to do. And I like to have the closure facing me so that I make sure that I don't cut into the closure or make any holes, because stitching that closure up, honey, is not fun. Boom! See, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So we got our strings here, and we're just gonna cut our strings. That's all you need to do. Cut all the strings. Make sure you find them all. Make sure you cut them all. Get those strings out of there, honey. You cut them all off. That's all you gotta do. And then once you're done cutting the strings, you wanna comb out your closure to match the rest of the hair. Put it back on the mannequin if need be, and you're done. This is how we do our machine sewn unit. If you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below if you need me to do any other videos.